And so our writeups database has been an extremely valued piece of PlexTrac for a long time. We make it really easy to take items and put them into a writeups to your writeups database that you've created yourself, or to bring findings in from a writeups database. It's really easy to do that. You go to add findings from writeups database, and you get the selection that you see here. But what's brand spanking new for us is that we are announcing today that we have now introduced the concept of repositories in the writeups database. And what do the repositories do for you? In the past, all of the writeups, which you can still access all the writeups, right? You had simply a flat list of everything that exists today. You could use tags to find those things, and that was a great way of organizing your writeups. But you had limited permissions because if you had the RBAC permissions to read-write access to the writeups database, you had read-write access to everything in the writeups database. You had no ability to segregate things. And in larger teams, once again, principal bleeds privilege, right? You don't want the GRC folks messing with your pen testing write-ups.
That's for sure. And the write-ups are going to be different, right? If I'm coming in from an incident response perspective versus a vulnerability management perspective, my context is going to be completely different, and you don't want to use that same write-up.
I may have different write-ups for different regulatory regimes. I may have different write-ups for different clients. So this is great.
Yeah, let me do a little bit deeper dive into how this process works. So you can see that I've got 5 repositories on my screen right now. For those of you on the call that are current PlexTrac listeners, the migration strategy is pretty simple. All of the write-ups that exist in your environment today, once your system is updated with this new code, by the way, this just hit our Edge branch today. So this will be being promoted into our stable environment within 2 weeks, and will be pushed automatically for if you are a SaaS customer and PlexTrac is hosting you, or will be available for you within 2 weeks if you are an on-prem client. But the migration strategy is all of your existing write-ups will be placed into a repository. We give you this nice little helper text, right? Any existing write-ups have been moved here. And this is where you can find all of the things that that you had before. However, what we have now is the ability of creating new repositories. So I have actually created 4 new repositories. One that segregates my network vulnerabilities, and one that segregates my web app vulnerabilities. And then I've got these associated Dropboxes here, right? And this is a use case that we know people are going to love. One thing that you'll note is that these Dropboxes are shared repositories. What that means is if you've got the RBAC permissions for read-write for writeups database, you can interact and work with anything in the shared repositories. However, you also have the ability of creating a new repository and making it a private repository. So I've got network vulnerabilities and web app vulnerabilities here. I'll go ahead and hop into web app. You'll notice that I've moved some of my burp type findings here. But I can come in here now and I can manage users and permissions. And I can say, I think we've established that Brian can't write. So maybe Brian just has the ability of viewing these write-ups and pulling these write-ups into his report. But I trust Joe, and Joe can come in here.
That's a mistake.
I don't want to let Brian Privesc himself by managing this modal. So take away his ability to manage users, so he can bring himself back edit capability.
I don't like to write. I can write if I need to. I just
But yeah, you can come in here, you can manage additional users that exist in your tenancy, and really granularly control things so that you can standardize the language that's being brought into your write-ups. Now, this is something that is really cool that people have been asking for a long, long time. Like, this makes me so happy to be here today to be able to show this. So I've got these cool bulk actions I can now take any of these and I can clone them from this Writeup repository into another repository, or I can just move them, right? And so if I wanted to start, you mentioned, Joe, where you've given different versions of write-ups, some for more technical audiences, some for less technical audiences, things like that, right? I can just copy these things in bulk today and say, I would like to add these, this doesn't make much logical sense, but to my network vulnerabilities library. And now I have added those into that network vulnerability library while retaining the original copy that is here. So absolutely cool capability, but let's start stringing some things together. Let's start stringing together the permissions that we've given you with this ability to clone, okay? So I don't trust Brian to write well, but every now and then Brian gets a good idea. And from a technical perspective, he's... Brian's gonna flog me after this webinar.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I hope you're working from home, Sean.
But I do want Brian to have the ability to contribute, right? And so this is why these drop boxes are here. I've created these new repositories as public so that Brian can come in here. He can create or copy write-ups from the write-ups database into these, from his reports into, this is empty right now, but you can come in here, create something, start from scratch, maybe use a field template, do everything he needs to go to make his submission, to include what repository I'm doing that in and what I think it should be and so forth, right? And once he creates that, that's awesome. Now we can have Joe, who has that ability to actually edit that private repository for network findings. He can come in, he can edit it, he can review it, and if he decides that it's at a state that he wants to make it part of our approved write-ups, he can just move it. Great, we can move it out of here and let's get it where it belongs. Inside of the network vulnerabilities repository, and it's moved out, the trash is cleared out. Joe can set a timer, set an alarm or something to come in here, check this every now and then, but he doesn't necessarily have to, because he's going to get a visual indication whenever something has dropped into the drop boxes.
No, this is great because it puts a lot of structure around the QA process for write-ups. The biggest issue I had in our practices is that Bob would have a write-up finding for cross-site scripting that had one title, and then Steve would have a finding that with a slightly different title. And, if I had to do any analytics for my customer, I couldn't tell you if they were different. And as a result, it was kind of a mess. Now with this, I can go ahead and have new findings written that are to be QA'd, to be approved, in a separate repository that I can put some structure around and have specific individuals, my tech writers, my QA people, or that trusted peer to look at it and then move it into the approved for use repository. And now we're all using the same title, we're all using the same finding, and my client can do analytics, or my project coordinators or operation can do analytics on findings over a period of time. Again, providing actionable information to the customer is what makes them sticky, what keeps them with my practice rather than, going off to another one.
Absolutely. And Joe, we really stumbled upon something with this repository is in the permission structure, and we love it. And that generated a lot of discussion internal in PlexTrac. And I don't have this to show you today, and it's not coming for a while, but you're going to see this repository structure again, because we have lots of reusable data in PlexTrac. We have
we do.
We know today that people are using report templates as ways of reusing narratives that they dynamically bring into their environments, right? And I'm going to show you how you can do that today here in a moment. We've also got content in our runbooks in procedures. And so we're going to be over the course of this year taking those various data elements and structuring them in the same repository format. to bring this same level of control, permissions, and enablement of standardization and peer review into the other reusable content in the platform. So
yeah, this is great. I mean, this is the whole sharpen the saw idea, right? I mean, if you have 6 hours to cut down a tree, you spend 4 hours sharpening the saw, and being able to set this up in advance, having everything you want perfectly tweaked with a couple of different sets of eyes will make your process go so much faster. Goes to the bottom line.